are bright and shiny in my mind. You got me loving, hating, crazy, indecision in my mind.
Welcome to the Fall Podcast, where the focus is on deer hunting, tips, tricks, tactics, and stories from across the Midwest. And now, here is your host, Aaron Blasey.
Welcome to the Fall Podcast. I am your host, Aaron Blasey, and this is episode number 29. And on today's episode, we are diving in with a guest that's been on here before, Kasey Thren of Complete Doe Management, and we're going to be talking a lot about small property management, and it's been 5 years in the making. Before I get too far, I do want to introduce my co-host, Justin Fabian, all the way from Virginia, because it's Christmas time and everybody's traveling. So, Justin, what's going on, man?
Oh, not much. Had a classic Christmas catastrophe as far as travel goes, but I'm finally in Virginia and I'm ready to go to bed, to be honest.
Yeah, I bet, man.
I'm ready to settle down for a minute.
Yeah, you've been running ragged. You've before this, you had some shows that were due, didn't you? And you were pulling all-nighters and everything?
Yeah, last Wednesday, the 15th episode of Whitetail TV went out. And, yeah, that was an all-nighter. But, yeah, came off of that and tried to collect myself at the end of the week, getting ready for a little bit of a break. And then first thing out of Des Moines, my first flight was delayed by 45 minutes. So with only a 30-minute layover in Chicago, I missed our connection because the first flight was delayed. And we ended up spending the night in Chicago and got to Virginia like 12 hours late.
Sounds like hell, man.
Yeah, it wasn't bad. It was actually the airline's fault. So they comped us a hotel room and gave us some meal vouchers, but just the inconvenience, I guess. But
yeah,
what are you gonna do?
Right. Yep. Yeah. So, I had a heck of a week, and we haven't talked about it too much. And I've thrown a post out on Instagram, so probably everybody knows now, but Jim Abbott is, he's no more, man. He's done for. He's gone.
He gone.
He gone. And, it was a phone call I definitely did not want to get, I'll tell you what.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, it's definitely not the way I wanted to start my day off on Tuesday. I'm pretty sure it was Tuesday. I get a phone call from my brother-in-law, and he's the one that owns the farm, and he's hauling manure from the dairy farm that he runs, and he calls me. He's like, "Hey, Jim Abbott's right here in the ditch." He's like, "It looks like he got hit by a car not too long ago," and I'm like, "No way." He goes, "Yep, pretty sure it's him." And I said, "Well, when you go back by, snap a picture of him and send it to me." And when he called me, I had immediate like emotions. Just I don't even know what it was. It was like I feel kind of weird saying this, but it was like almost like I don't know. It was just it was almost like you lost a friend or something. You know what I mean? Like.
Yeah.
I hate saying it like that, but you have so much history with these deer, and I try not to get emotionally attached, but you can definitely tell I did. And
yeah,
it sucked, but
well, you have so much invested into it. It's
right.
Like you said, it's emotion. It feels emotional. It's like an attachment, but it's because you have so much investment into it. It's
yeah.
You find a deer you want to target, and you find ways to grow them to an age you want to. See him live to, and then to survive your shot, a gunshot, plus the last 3 years of his life, who knows what else he's encountered.
Yeah.
All to get hit by a car in December, not even during the rut.
I know it. That's
just crazy.
It is crazy, and he sent me a picture, and it was for sure him. So I'm like, well,
yeah,
I'm going to get, I wasn't going to be able to be home until later that night, and I said I'm gonna call the DNR and I'm gonna get a salvage tag, And because taking an antlers or a deer or whatever, just taking off the side of the road without a salvage tag is highly illegal, and it's you just don't do that. It's just I don't know.
Yeah.
So I want to do it the right way. It's how I've always done it. So I called the DNR, and they sent me, I had to go through this questionnaire, which honestly is really easy. They send you a link online. You go through and you answer like 5 or 6 questions. You put your information in, and they actually pull up an interactive map to where you're taking the deer from. And you put a pin right there, so it automatically goes in their database. So, and then once that's done, you submit it, and they submit you a tag right there that you just print it off. So that's what I did. I printed it off, and that was in the morning, so I'm like thinking about it all day, So I get home, and my wife and daughter, they're making dinner, and I just wanted to buzz over there real quick, but I felt kind of guilty just because we haven't had dinner as a family in like 2 months because I've been gone, and this is the first time we've been home all together. And I'm like, well, I'll wait till Peyton goes down to bed, which usually is around 7:30, 8 o'clock. So nobody will screw with him, And so I waited, and we had dinner and hung out and everything and played. And once Peyton went down, I said, well, I'm going to go get that deer, and got the lights, and I got the tag and everything. I buzzed over there, and I was going to do an Instagram video and everything, and which I did. But when I walked up on him, somebody had already cut the antlers off him, and I just got even more mad. And it's not it. I don't want it to everybody to think like I felt like this was my deer. It's not. I don't feel like it's my deer, but I think what I got so mad about is I almost bet you that whoever took the antlers probably didn't get a salvage tag. If they did, thank you for doing that. But around this area, like, nobody's going to do that. Like, not a lot of people do. They just see a good buck on the ditch, and they'll go cut the antlers. Didn't even cut the head off. They scalped them. Literally just scalped them. And my whole thing was I wanted to do this the right way, like I've been taught and the way I do things. And I also wanted it to, like, respect him. You know what I mean? I've had 3 years of history of this with this deer, and I just wanted to, I feel like that was the way to respect him. I was going to take the deer. I was going to try to salvage any meat that I could, which, by the way, he was just in not good shape. The whole deer was just not in good shape at all. And then I was going to get a European mount done on him, because that's what I figured how he should have been remembered, in the circumstances. Yeah. And I just get so mad. And I'm like, gosh, but what do you do?
You can't win.
No, you can't. What do you do? I've had a great year this year. I haven't been able to kill a deer, but I've had my opportunity. I had my opportunity on him, and I screwed it up.
Yeah, you've said that in the past. Like, you wait for that one opportunity. And you had one with him, and you had one in Ohio, which was a deer you didn't have a choice. You had to let him live. Right. Yep. So, as far as a hunter, you played the game, you did everything right, and you had your chances. You were where you were supposed to be. Right. Just, it didn't work on Jim Abbott that one day, and you made a management decision on a totally different farm in a different state. So right. You can't hold that against yourself. No. There will be another one next year, Yeah. So. Yep. But, yeah, that's basically the Jim Abbott update. And thanks for the text the next day. Yeah, there's if you guys don't know who Brandon Calhoun is, he does the intro to the Fall podcast. He does the music to the intro, and he does a song called "Hey Jimmy." You should go listen to that if you'd never heard it before, because it's kind of fitting to the fact that your deer's name was Jim Abbott. The next morning after this all happened, the first thing I see is a text from Justin. It says,
and it's the link to the iTunes song "Hey Jimmy," and he goes, "Too soon?" with a question mark. I laughed. But
Yeah, I figured you would.
yeah. And if you
I'm
guys
glad you
haven't
did
heard
anyway.
if you haven't heard of Brandon Calhoun, like Justin said, go to iTunes and listen to some of his music. I might be a little biased. I know Brandon really well, but he's such a good artist, and all of his music's really good. I recommend going to listen to that. So.
Yeah, I downloaded a couple of his albums. Well, it was shortly after you guys laid down that EP for him or whatever it was.
Yep. Yeah.
Rooster Tracks did some stuff with him, and I don't know. I'll turn it on, every couple of months, and I was like, why didn't I keep listening to this? And
Exactly.
it just stays up on the playlist, and
Yep.
I love it.
It's good music, man. It makes me feel good when I listen to it. He's got good vibes, so.
Yeah, good lyrics too. Like if you just listen to his words, like there's as much storytelling in music as there is in video. And I mean, our world is video, but I think it makes it easy to appreciate a good song or a good lyric too. So
Definitely.
it's kind of cool.
Yeah, for sure. Well, what do you say we stop blabbering here and get Kasey on the phone and get this interview started?
Yeah, call him up. I'm anxious to talk to him.
Yeah, let's get into that. All right, now on the phone we've got Kasey Thren. Kasey, how you doing, man?
Great.
Good deal. It's basically Christmas time here, and I know you're probably getting ready with all the presents and everything, and getting ready for Santa to come down the chimney. How's the girls doing?
Doing good. Still excited, And we actually got most of the shopping done early. We just still have to wrap, and it'll be a ninth hour type of thing. But oh well, it happens.
Oh yeah. Well, today, I wanted to get you on here. We've been trying to do this and for the last couple of months, and I've been saying, yeah, let's do it here, then I can't do it. So finally we got you on a little later at night, but we'll get this on and get it going. So basically, I really wanted to pick your brain about your property, and you've had it for 5 years now. And basically when you got it, you had a property to mold. And then this year you ended up taking a real good buck off of it with your bow, and it's been 5 years in the making. I want to start from square one. Does that sound good to you?
Yeah, that'll work.
So let's start off with, when you purchased the property. When you were going into the purchase, there's a house on it. You live on it. So, you purchased it. So what was your plan of attack from the start to get this, to be what you want it to be?
Right. So, first of all, yeah, there's a house on it, but it wasn't finished. So we closed in March 2014, but we couldn't move into the house because there was no occupancy permit. Well, it wasn't livable at all. There's a shell, basically. There was a foreclosure. And I walked the property really quick. I was really excited about, there's a pole barn, 20 acres, and that's all I needed to know. I really didn't, don't tell my wife, but I didn't really care much about the house. But obviously your kids need a place to live. So we actually took us till July to get all the permits. It was not a fun time, actually. It was fun and wasn't. It was very rewarding once we moved in. We moved in July 4th, something like that, of 2014. We got our occupancy permit and livable. So at that point, here it is, halfway through the summer. I did very little on the property. With their little description of the property, it's a rectangle. It used to be a square 40, and the owners that had it before, the family took 20 acres, and the other side of the family took 20 acres. And obviously there's a house, but the only open spot on it is there's a power line going through it. It's about a 1 acre power line. It goes through, property line to property line, east to west, or west to east, whatever. And it's not even our power. It's not even our power. It's just a major power line that goes through. It doesn't even connect to our house or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a right of way, and I've done a lot of things on right of ways on other properties, and most of the time people put a food plot on it. So it was overgrown, shrubs, not very high, obviously, because they don't want, utility companies don't want things getting in the way of their line. So shrubs, and it's kind of low. Half of it is low and almost underground or underwater. Sorry. Oh, all through springtime. It really doesn't even dry up to probably July. And then there's a little higher spot by the house or whatever. So, I, of course, first thing I did was mowed it, brush hogged it, started rototilling it. And, if I had to go back 5 years, I wouldn't have done that. Not through the whole thing anyway. I would have left a lot of that brush, overgrown, whatever, up. I would have done half of it if knowing what I know now. Because there's other spots I did end up opening up to get a little bit more place. Again, not knowing much about the property. I didn't know anything about the history of it, except there's a big pile of wood left on the property out by the road. It's probably 70 foot long, 20 foot high of logs, old logs, just sitting there. Still sitting there today because I can't move it. I can't do anything with it. I can't give it away. I can't sell it. Can't burn it. So animals live in it, and it's just kind of it actually acts as a little bit of a barrier with the road and neighbors and everything like that. So one reason I haven't really decided what to do with it, but anyway, so the property was logged before I got it. It was a lot of aspen. It was cut maple. I'm guessing probably 10 years ago or so. We were guessing 06, 07, somewhere in there from family history and whatnot. So it was thick. It was thickest piece around. There's a big block of woods that's probably 320 acres of woods. Surrounding it is fields, and there's a big creek drainage ditch, not going on mine, but on the neighbors. Actually, the neighbors that's with the 20 next to me. And that is a deer runway, deer highway, I like to consider it. It's low water and safety. But anyway, so I was the thickest around, and I have a swamp on this property that's probably taken up about close to, haven't actually measured it out, but it's probably close to 5 acres. As a matter of fact, I can't even get down my west line because of open water usually during hunting season and whatnot. Can't even do anything with it. So the mosquitoes, the frogs, and everything was just absolutely terrible the first year or two we even were here, just, of course, not knowing, and all the water and whatnot. Since then, we've had to get it treated, mosquito treats, usually around the house. Actually, a township has to do it and stuff like that. So kind of going around here, just giving them a long history, but this was kind of all the things that the deer live in, and deer have to deal with too. They have to deal with the mosquitoes and everything else. There was a lot of coyotes on the property. I had them on trail camera all the time. The first year, I was able to get a stand up pretty much about 100 yards behind the house, and that was it as far as the back goes. I did brush hog, the logging trails, and that is it. So what I should have done is, as soon as I got the property, did what I did, but just threw up every trail camera I could everywhere. Yeah. I should have, even on 20 acres, I should have threw up on all four corners of the property, everywhere. I just should have put them up just to see what the deer are naturally doing.
So when you got it though, was there any topography to it? Like, was there anything that really stuck out and you were like, I gotta get in here and hone on this piece and put trail cams up, or was your whole plan just to get that camera out there and just figure out what was there? What were you looking at there?
Yeah, well, I picked this intersection, and this intersection looked like a good spot to kind of put a camera. And I did. I don't think it was right away. I think I did it again the first year. I got very little. As a matter of fact, I still have the camera in the same spot today. But that first year, yes, I killed a doe. Matter of fact, the first time I went out, October 7th or 8th, that first year.
Yep.
3-year-old doe. She weighed 140 pounds. I like to collect data when every deer I kill or even find dead on the property. I like to collect the data, at least the jawbone and the age. So I can use those down the road as what the herd is doing in my area.
Right.
Because with 20 acres, I can't, what did I say, manage the herd, basically. I can't hardly manage numbers. I can't hardly manage bucks. I can only do my little part here. Since then, fast forward a little bit, I've talked to the neighbors, 160 acres behind me to myself. I talk to them, see how they hunt. That's something I recommend doing right away on a new piece, getting to know the neighbors. I talk to the neighbors and this and that. And so all the neighbors that connect to me, I have talked to. 3 of them hunt. One's on a 20. One group's at 160. And then another guy who hunts on 15 acres. Well, little did I know that a lot of them don't like to shoot does at all. No does. There was a ton of deer here when I first, even just 5 years ago, but we had a lot of more farm around than I do now.
Mm-hmm.
Back then there was different crops and so on and so forth. Since then it's just been, rye or hay or something like that, but it comes and goes. And then since then I've killed does every year, usually about 1, maybe 2, but I've had opportunities from that trail, just that one trail camera, of a quality buck coming through this property every year. We owned it except the first year.
Yep. So before you get too far into there, what is your goals? Like, what are your quality bucks over there in that area?
So I've made the decision, and I've made this decision even before I went in business, managing properties. I want to harvest at least a 2.5-year-old or older buck.
Mm-hmm.
As far as a doe goes, I want to harvest an older doe, but I don't care too much. If that makes any sense. I usually target my does if they have button bucks with her. That's the ones I target, and the ones that live here.
You target the ones that have button bucks with them?
Yeah.
Can you elaborate a little more on that, like why you do that?
Yeah. So if they live here and if they're around my area a lot, and I do have deer, does especially, doe little families, who bed on the property. This property is pretty much a bedding area. So I'll get into that in a little bit later of why I think that. But if the does are carrying button bucks, if I take her out, those button bucks, if they've lived here, they're more likely to stay here. And if she's not here and where they were born and where they live and where they grew up, because they know the area, they like the area, hopefully, and the mother doesn't kick them out. Every time a mother gets pregnant, come springtime, she runs off her offspring, whether it be a doe or a buck. And if it's the first year button buck, second year it'd be a year old, be coming into its first set of antlers, she's going to run those deer off more likely. 1 to 5 miles on the research. If you look it up, you can Google all this stuff. But if you Google QDMA yearling buck dispersal or something like that, that's where you would find articles on the research. But about 75% of them, she runs off, and it's kind of nature's way and her way of not getting bred by her own son type of thing.
Yep.
Now we probably know, and just kind of common sense tells you that some sort of relation may breed out there, and there's been inbreeding, it's got to be inbreeding on islands and stuff like that. But so anyway, that's why I like to do that. So in 2 years from now, hopefully that buck stays around. He doesn't get shot, and I think that's what happened this year, as a matter of fact.
So, I mean, that makes perfect sense, but I've never actually targeted a doe that has, a button buck. I never really thought of it that way, I guess. I did know, that they will, the moms will kick them off, and but I've never really targeted a doe. Justin, I mean, do you have anything on that? Do you do anything around those lines?
Yeah, I mean, naturally they will get weaned. Most of the time in the rut, if the does, if the fawns are still on the does, I mean, I'm sure you both have probably shot some does in November that were still producing milk. You go to field dress them and they're still pretty wet. But, that's generally the time that the bucks are just running them so hard that the fawns just kind of get lost, or else their moms get shot, or, but to your point of, shooting the ones specifically with button bucks, that is one way, obviously, to ensure that that buck is, left on your property with the intent to hopefully keep it there. But one other thing to add to that would be to consider the number of fawns with that doe, because, 99% of the time, the first time a doe is bred, she will always only have one fawn. But then at 2.5 and older, she'll always have at least 2. So in trying to figure out the age structure of your doe herd on your property, no matter what size, you can use that as another factor in determining how old the deer or the doe is that you're, have the option to shoot in that moment, if you still see them with fawns.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Case, I mean, is that some of the stuff that you've had in your research as well?
Yeah, usually if deer gets bred, does will get bred if they weigh 80 pounds. They have a chance to get bred. Around here in my area, that's probably unlikely, just because of the food and how I've aged and weight these deer. I've killed a two-year-old doe. She only weighed like 120 pounds live weight, and she had 2 fetuses in her. So that kind of tells me I doubt a doe fawn will get bred around here, but I don't know. We've had, 20 acres. It's just, I got to kind of pick and choose. I don't get to pick and choose. I got to kind of take what I have around here for does. And, usually the first time they have a fawn, it's usually a buck. A lot of time it's a late born, sometimes spike buck. They just need a little time to grow up a little bit, and that's it. So as they get older, I think there's a guy up at Turtle Lake Hunt Club. They did a big study, and they found out any does older than 5 years old, they have usually twins, and about 80% of the time they're doe fawns. The younger the doe, the more times they have a buck. So like the first couple of years, they have bucks, usually. But when they're 2, 3, 4, 5, and right in there, it's 50-50, usually.
Mm-hmm.
On average.
Yeah. So to kind of get back to your property a little bit here, so you have this 20 acres, and it, you figured it was logged off like 10 years, prior to you getting it. Now, I know what the property looks like, but to kind of paint a picture for everybody else, you live on a dirt road. And better than I do how much traffic it gets, but your house is just far enough off where you can't see it from the road. So would you say that your house is like right in the middle of the property, or the front quarter of it? Like, how does, like, give everybody a little bit of layout of your 20?
The house is sitting almost dead center of the property. It is north of dead center, probably in between a quarter and half. So what is that, 3/8 or something like that? So that's about where it's sitting. So we have deer. When we could bait, I can get deer, and I can shoot deer, does, right out of the back right off the porch, very easily. Bucks, no, not so much. I do have yearling bucks kind of coming by the house, but again, it's thick. You've seen it. It's popple slash right now. All the popple is, it's growing up, but it's probably 2-3 inch diameter stuff that's 20 feet high. The front section, there's probably a 2 acre front section. I kind of been experimenting with a bedding zone right in the middle of that little thing, and it's right off the road. And I got deer coming in and out of that a lot. It's kind of like a little pothole safety deal. And they eat. Obviously, now I've planted. I've got clover, perennial clover, coming up in that utility line, stuff like that now. And then every year by the house, I put just a rye brassica mix, just something to eat in the hunting season. And then recently I've planted switchgrass out there as well to kind of hide the house a little bit. But those deer know what we do more than I know what they do. Even when I'm sitting out in the tree, if I'm sitting out in the tree in the morning, I can hear the kids walk out, go to school or whatever, the dog, all that stuff. You know darn well that the deer hear all that stuff too. So they tolerate a lot, which is sometimes an advantage.
So what would be your advantages and disadvantages for having the house there?
I would say advantages is I get to, when I see a deer, I can usually know which one it is. Like I got this deer with a notch out of her ear. She's carrying 2 fawns with her. And she is around here a lot. She's actually still alive. So that's an advantage. If you don't live there and you don't, can't see that every day, that would be a disadvantage, I think. You'd have to go off trail camera stuff. And trail cameras and taking pictures is nowhere near like seeing them live or having your trail camera on video mode. So that's a big advantage. But I scare them a lot. That's a disadvantage. I spook them, and I don't know what I'm spooking sometimes.
Right.
Another advantage is I know when they're moving. So if I see deer moving a lot in the morning, I could grab my stuff and go get in a tree, or go hunting. And if I don't see them around, I may not waste the time, because on 20 acres, I can't. I've learned it took me a little bit to learn my lesson on how much I'm spooked the deer, but I have to. I guess that would be an advantage. So that's probably it. Maybe the advantage is my scent and our scent is around a lot. But again, my neighbor, two houses down, only has like 2 acres. She feeds the deer. Well, she feeds the squirrels and birds. She's got bird feeder back there. And the other day, we're not supposed to be baiting right now in Isabella County, so I don't think she's necessarily baiting the deer. Can't accuse her of that. But often we go by and there's 10 or 15 deer in the back of her yard. So, and they'll even wait for her. She'll be out there feeding the bird feeder with her 2 little dogs, and the deer will be in 50 yards behind her, waiting for her to get done. I can't do that. Maybe if I did it a lot, maybe I could, but they know I shoot them.
Right. So, you got your advantages and disadvantages. Your advantage, I think, like you said, to your point of being able to monitor the property every day is huge.
I can see a fresh scrape. I can see a fresh rub. You know,
Yeah.
and that's just around the house type of thing. So if I see a fresh scrape or a big rub, I'm like, ooh, he's here, and I got to go now. Because
Right.
what I learned most out of the last 5 hunting seasons is I can get quality bucks on the property passing through, but they're only going to pass through normally a day or two. And I got to pick that right day. And that's with not doing a whole lot to the property. Like I said, we got food out front. That's gaining. I did some hinge cutting, and we can talk about that in a little bit. But most importantly, I hunted it differently, and we can talk about that too.
So let's get into that then. So the first year you went in, you did some food, you got some food in the ground and everything. So now going in, to the next couple years, what was your game plan? Like what, you obviously after hunting it for a year or two, you knew what you needed to do differently. You knew what you needed to add, because for me, like any property, small or big, I want there to be cover. That's my number one thing. Me personally. So what were you thinking going into those next couple years? What did you have to do to the farm to make it that much better?
So after every hunting season, I've always walked around the property in the middle of the winter, and I'll try to do as many times as I can, especially if it's frozen. I can get through the swamp because we've got so much rain right now. I get stuck. I'd get lost, actually, because I got stuck last year. Matter of fact, I thought it was frozen, got my boots stuck, and almost didn't get out of there. One reason was I wasn't prepared properly, but I was looking for a neighbor said she shot a deer, and I was in there kind of looking around. But long story short, every year I go and I see where they're bedding. So I've marked those spots. I've marked some trails. Every winter I do that. And usually they use the same amount of trails usually during hunting season too. I just can't see them. They can pass right by the house here and I can't see them. Not when there's leaves and stuff up and, ferns and whatever, bushes and brush and stuff. So that was big. Now leading up to this year, I could have a feeder out back. So it's legal to have a feeder year round. It was anyway, within 100 yards of your house. And you could put a spin feeder or at least 2 gallons of corn. I just used corn, and sometimes I used roasted soybeans and stuff like that. Again, you put some sort of any feed like that behind the house, you get deer regularly coming in. This year, when did they stop it? What, August or something, or July?
Yeah, right before season. It felt like.
Yeah, and I had a little redneck gravity feeder back here. I had just corn in it. I do it for a couple reasons, so the kids can see it, and then obviously I can see it and get some intel, and I just want the deer around here. And that actually, what I noticed was they would obviously change their travel pattern. They would come to that and mosey on somewhere else. But now since I stopped baiting, hardly see deer, maybe once a week come through that I see, you know what I mean? But it also goes in stages. There'll be a couple days in a row, there'll be a bunch of deer going back and forth, and then I don't see them for 2 weeks. It's just kind of their travel patterns and stuff like that. So that was something to monitor. And then what I wanted to do was hinge cut along my, and I'm still in the process of hinge cutting my property lines. I've caught wind that the guy on the 15 acres to my southeast likes to shoot a lot of yearling bucks. To each his own, as far as that concerns. I just want him to do it legally, and I've heard a rumor he doesn't. So I wanted to kind of divert those deer to make it a little harder for him to get them. So I did that with some hinge cutting, and I also made access. So getting into my hunting spot, I was doing all wrong for like 2 years.
So, go back to the hinge cut. So you're going along all your property lines. Are you doing what type of hinge cut are you doing? Are you doing like a slash cut, or are you doing, staggering, or what was your goal there, and how were you going about that hinge cut?
With that one, I was just basically making a footpath trail, about 2 or 3 foot wide. That's all I was trying to accomplish. And I didn't have much to work with as far as type of wood. Obviously, aspen does not hinge cut. So what I would have to do is just simply cut the aspen right off, and then I would lay it long ways on top of that. So I'd cut it off maybe waist high, take what I cut, and build like a fence.
Gotcha. Yep. So you're trying to create a barrier though too. So
Just trying to make a barrier, yeah.
Yeah, you're trying to keep the deer on your spot, your property, and you're trying to be able to make access so, deer that could be, close to you as you're accessing don't hear you or don't see you, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, so again, I didn't have much to work with. I had a couple big maples I wanted to knock down. I was also creating food at the same time with the maples, but I didn't have a lot of maples, and again, I didn't have a whole lot to work with. So I'm in the process still of doing that. I don't get a lot of time to work on my own property. I thought I was going to have some time this past year, but I've been working so much on other people's properties. I'm lucky to get done what I got done here. So then that's perfectly fine with me. I'd rather do that for those customers and clients, help those out. But so that's kind of what I was doing, and that's what I got accomplished. One line, about half of the line done, and actually deer were in there bedding, so I had to be very careful. I really couldn't use it too much, getting to my blind. So, and another thing I should add, and we can talk about it later, but my property is set up to hunt mornings.
And why is that? Like, what triggers you to have to do that?
Because the deer bed here, and every time I go out in the afternoon, I kick them up.
So they're betting on you then?
They're bedding everywhere. Yep. Until I figure out exactly my hinge cutting and my borders, and I'm going to do a bunch of experimenting with blocking, like a solid block of something. I just don't know what I'm going to use. I may even use some old green snow fence. I don't know yet. I'm having trouble with putting plastic out in my property. So I'm trying to figure out a more natural way to do that I can hide behind and not kick them out during the day. And I got some, again, the whole property, besides that one open acre, is all just a log trail. There is it's thick and log trail. You can't see more than, you can see down a lane, and that is it.
Hey, Kasey, let me interrupt you for a second. If you're familiar with the Frigid Forage line of food plot seeds, they make a product called Plot Screen, and it's a blend of like sorghums and Egyptian wheats and stuff, like all these grasses that grow 8 to 10 feet tall in a very short amount of time. It sounds like something that might work for you as far as getting some, a better access route without having to put any kind of plastic or foreign material out there. And it's you plant it every year. You can either drill it or broadcast seed it. The only thing is it requires a lot of nitrogen. So see what your soil's at. But, I mean, that stuff, like I said, it grows incredibly tall in a matter of 60 to 90 days.
Yeah, I actually have Miscanthus giganteus around the house that I've been experimenting with. But the plot screen won't grow here because it's too wet, and it won't get enough sunlight. And I can't prep the ground like I'd like to there. So what I'm going to probably do is along the swamp, I got a brush cutter coming in with Red Hook Properties. They got a skid steer with a brush cutter on it, and I'm going to make a a small micro plot near the house to try to draw them from the neighbor. And then I'm along the edge of the swamp. I'm going to put maybe a 1/4 acre long boomerang shaped plot in, and I'm going to try the switchgrass on that. And I may do this plot screen at the same time till the switchgrass grows up. But so I got a lot to do, and hopefully that'll help me out with more hunting like the afternoons. But again, going back to morning hunt, when I can go out there in the morning, I don't even see deer till probably 2 hours after daylight comes up.
In the mornings.
Yep. They're coming back to my property to bed, usually. At least a doe family or 2 doe families, somewhere in there. And so every year now, leading up to no baiting, every time I would spook deer more and more, if it was afternoon or morning, and if the neighbors were putting pressure on it, I was spooking deer even going out in the years previous. So it'd be dark and I'm kicking deer up. But it didn't start out that way. So in the beginning of the season, kicking nothing up. As even pre-rut goes or into end of October or even into November, kicking deer up in the morning. So their patterns changed various reasons, but this year was totally different. Of course, I got my buck October 26th, so I didn't really hunt much after that, but everything kind of fell into place this year. And I think that was big reason was not baiting.
Yeah. So when you were coming into it, I guess, you had a lot of cover then. Your property's very thick, right?
Yep, very thick, and the edges are open because you can walk my property line and you look to the right on my property and you can't see 50 yards through the trees and whatnot. You look to the left on all of my neighbors surrounding me. You can see 200-300 yards.
Okay. So your plan was, you had the cover. So, obviously food is another thing, but then it's like time to manicure that cover. Is that what you were kind of thinking? Like, now let's start manipulating them to where I want them to bed? Is that where you're kind of at?
That's where I'm at right now. But a couple of years ago, no. I just figured I would let them do what they wanted to do naturally. I was just hunting them wrong. I was hunting right on top of them, and I shouldn't have been. I was hunting, just off the swamp, right where they wanted to come in bed. So I was dropping a lot of my scent where my stand was. Because there was an oak tree. You helped me put the one stand up. Matter of fact, on that oak tree, I think you did anyway, was that ladder, a big ladder stand. And the reason I did that is because I had 2 trails coming together, and then that main, I call it the bear scrape, because a bear actually made the tree that the deer lick and make scrapes on. It's kind of like my intersection, nature scrape anyway. And I was just on the wrong side of it. And my property, and where I'm sitting was a low area, and my scent just swirled. So I was doing it. I hunched it wrong for 2 years, just because of the wrong stand setup, or wrong stand placement. And I knew it too. I knew it was in the bad spot. I should have said what, I don't know why I did that, I guess. It just kind of went back to not wanting to hunt the property lines type of thing. Never been that type of person. But then after my neighbor talked to him, and he didn't care about me. They don't even bow hunt that. And he didn't care about hunting property lines, and I'm not hunting right on it, and I'm facing mine. I'm 20 or 30 yards off it. But I moved to the southern line and in a double tree, so I got better cover, and I can get to it better. And I think the whole time I was just in the wrong kind of position. So now I can fine tune it to do what you were saying. I can kind of hone in on where I want them to try to get them to bed where I want them, and then kind of come into the property where I want them. That's what I'm going to work on this winter.
Yep. So you have water on the farm, or on the property. So your water's good, and then you have the cover. Now it's just manipulating that cover to where you want it. Now, to go to food, because that's what everybody says, cover, and food, and then in water as well, so the deer don't have to leave. Now, a lot of your food, or majority of your food's in front of the house, in the front of the property, right?
As far as mine goes, yes. And as far as like, I'm not providing only a couple deer's amount worth of food out there. I kind of rely. There's a neighbor to my north too. He's been planting cereal rye the last couple of years. He usually planted corn, and I get a lot more action that way. But this year there was a big cornfield, to my west, and actually they didn't even cut it down till end of November. And I think I was taking advantage of that a little bit too. But I think that was a 20-acre, 30-acre cornfield.
Yep.
But I got a whole bunch of this you've seen to myself in that big woods. That's all soybeans. Probably 400 or 500 acres of soybeans over there.
Yeah, there's a lot.
So I'm competing with all of that. So I'm going to concentrate more on daytime food. So they're going to come to me, come home during hunting season. I'm talking about. Come to me about 9, 10 o'clock in the morning to go to sleep or go bed down or be safe for the day. I want to provide them with a little bit of perennial food of some type, but I also will be providing, with my hinge cutting, I'm crossing my fingers out a little bit, that I'm providing some forage for them because I got a lot of maples and some black cherry to knock down. And then I got a lot of, it's along my swamp. It's probably a clump of cherries and stuff like that, but I can pull those down and they can get some of that food too. So hopefully I can just make them stay there all day and get their belly full, be safe. And then when they want to go to get the crops or whatever, hopefully it's dark by the time they leave.
Yeah. So, with you saying that you were hunting it wrong for the last couple of years, what did you do this year differently that, made you successful in the end? Like, was it just a stand placement, entrance? Like, what was your plan of attack going into this year?
Yep. Number 1 was stand placement. Number 2 was I got one of those scent crusher things. I've been working, you and I have been talking about scent control for forever. And every year I think I'm doing good, and then I'll learn something else, and I'll learn something else, or something else works. So I got one of those scent crusher lockers, and I think that helped. I also took my base layers and wore fresh hair, fresh meaning just scent washed, throw it in the ozone, a new pair of those every time. But I didn't do that before. Kind of might sound a little gross, but so that's on your skin, right up against your skin. So that base layer was big, I think. And then I started using zeolite and putting it on my skin everywhere. I think that was big too. And then I would hunt the right wind. I kind of looked at the wind and the weather this year, and you and I talked about the pressures, barometric pressures, and so I hunted the right winds and the right pressures, and either cold front or some sort of weather change, and then the access was about the same, but I did use the hinge cut a little bit here and there. But again, it kind of goes right back to where my stand placement was. And then I stepped up my mock straight game again this year too.
Okay.
And that was the biggest changes. And of course there's no baiting here. So that I never baited back in the back though, where I was hunted over bait. I didn't do that until gun season anyway. But I think that was big for my area anyway. I think this puts a lot of unnecessary pressure and stress on the deer.
Yep.
Just and not the bait itself, just going to bait.
Yeah, and the scent, and that's a big topic for anybody when you talk to them about any hunter, and I've been experimenting for the last 4 years with ozonics. I use an ozonics unit all the time. Justin and I have talked about it a lot, and ozone, and I have, ScentLock makes the Oz machine now, and I've got the ozonics lockers and everything, but I'm a firm believer in ozone. And throw your clothes in that bag or that locker and hit it with some ozone, and I'm a believer in it, and I've had, while I was in the tree, I've had an ozonics unit with me, and I've had mature does and I've had mature bucks come downwind of me, and they act like something's up. They kind of know it, but then they kind of keep going, along. I've never really had anything bust me that I could see or hear. Now,
yeah, people have asked me the same thing, and it's one of those. It's a hard sell because you don't see a direct, proof of it working. Like, it's not a
black and white result. You can't smell it. Yeah, we don't know what we smell like when we smell ourselves. Oh, I must be. Yeah, it's a tough gauge.
Yeah, and I tell people, it's like, I've seen things happen with ozone running that I know shouldn't happen, and I've hunted without it, and it doesn't work.
Exactly.
The hunt gets blown, or I don't know. Just
I got busted a lot leading up to this year, but I was doing a little bit over hunting, and again I was in the wrong spot. I was in where my scent was swirling around, and so on and so forth. But doing it this year, doing a little different with that ozone, and again with that scent crusher, though, you can smell as soon as you unzipper it. And I wear rubber gloves, like surgical gloves, when I get dressed and stuff like that. Matter of fact, I wear them the entire time I hunt. But you can smell that fresh air, and I called Scent Crusher and asked them, like, how long does that the machine last? Like, how many cycles do I get out of it? And they said forever, basically. And he said, when you smell that fresh, like when you wake up in the morning and it rained all night or something, or rained, and you walk outside and you smell that little, like the earth was washed or cleaned.
Yep.
You get a little bit of that smell right from the very beginning.
Right.
And again, I'm not complete. I mean, I could still do more. I mean, I don't take a shower right before I go out most of the time. Probably should. But I don't do that. And I'm gonna work on a scent room. But I did get busted by a doe one morning. It was the first cold front morning. Got busted by a doe, but I don't think she knew what it was. Again, those deer know what we smell like. They know what humans smell like, those dogs smell like. So they know how close I can get to them. They know I don't. So they're living around us. And sure enough, she was a regular. It was a younger doe and a one fawn. And but that night I went back to the same stand, and I had 3 bucks underneath me. I got it on video.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know. It's something that you always argue with other hunters too. Because there's the John Eberhart, and he believes in activated carbon, which I'm not saying it's wrong. Activated carbon does work, but he doesn't pay attention to any wind at all. And he just goes in and hunts. It doesn't matter, because he thinks he's so confident in his scent control that he doesn't get busted. But I mean, you have those guys, and you have the guys that smoke in tree stands too.
Yeah, blue jeans and
exactly.
Marlboro Reds and
the cowboy killers.
Bush Night.
Yep, the old lattes.
So yeah.
But so you moved your stand this year. Now, how far did you move it from last year?
So I moved it straight south of where I was, probably 50 yards towards my property line.
And what made you move it that way then, I guess? Was it a wind thing? Was it how
It
they've
was,
been traveling the last couple years? Like, what were you looking at?
so I put my trail camera in a new spot. I hardly ever can get back to my southwest corner because it's just around the swamp. You gotta go by this one spot all the time to get to my southwest section. So I put a trail camera up there last winter and left it there, got it on video. And little did I know it is an absolute highway of deer. It's just a corner of my piece of property, and they use it. It's like a edge type of thing that they use, and they use it a lot. And I'm like, oh man, I am missing something. I can't nowhere near I can see these deer. So one of the reasons was the move. Well, you know how you've always seen old wooden stands up in trees that are still sitting up there and whatnot.
Yep.
So yeah, I found a couple trees with old steps in it, and I'm like, huh. Because I talked to the family and some guys around here that used to hunt it and get to know people and whatnot. And they're like, oh yeah, you get nice bucks off there all the time. And I'm like, really? I said, they're here, but I'm doing something wrong. And sure enough, yeah, they picked out a couple of spots. So that was one of the. I put a tree stand in both of those trees that I found, and it was again along the south line. And I think these just deer have been doing what they've been doing naturally for a long time. So what I just again need to prove on is fine tuning that.
What makes them move through there? Is it, like you said, is it it's an edge, or is there like a little topography change, or what was it?
No topography change. It's just going from my neighbor's park effect. He's got some big pine trees, big white pine. So it's really nice and cool in there, and they can see a long way. And then you go up against mine, and there's a little bit of a transition. So right along my line, it's not as thick as it is about 50 yards in. That's kind of how loggers log anyway. They don't get too close to lines because they don't really want to screw up and grab the wrong tree and so on and so forth. So, and it's also kind of how the trees have grown back too. That part didn't get a lot of the sunlight because it is a south facing. So all those big trees from my neighbors were blocking that south line. So there's a little transition, and that's what they use right along the property line. And that's where I was going to do another like hinge cut type of thing for an access to get to my southwest corner of the property. But I don't think I'm going to be able to do that now.
Yeah.
This year I didn't even have to go use that. I may go use that here in the next week or two. I'm going to meet however long we got left I need to shoot 2 does.
So you just found a good transition right there, and that's what they, that's just, like you said, I mean, on a lot of properties, there's that historic travel that does, and, just a lot of deer use it every year. It's Old Faithful, basically, and you just know that they come through there a lot.
Yeah, and they'll go around it. I mean, I don't want to block it off totally. They'll go around things and do things, but if you put a little pressure on them during hunting season, they're gonna avoid it. And I've seen that. I've seen that on different properties where a client wanted a trail blocked just because they didn't want neighbors coming, or they didn't, just wanted a block.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I think deer come through here. And they're like, I don't care. I want it blocked. So we block it up with whatever, brush or a hill or whatever. And they kind of avoid it. He kind of took it away from them. So I don't want to do that too quick, too much, too quick.
Yep.
Type of thing. But I think you can do bedding wise. You can specifically make some beds in some certain areas to try to get them to bed in that spot.
So, coming into this hunting season, you said you killed on October 26th. What were your sits like? What was your plan of attack as far as hunting? Were you, because you are only on 20 acres and you only can enter it from the north end of the property. So,
Yep.
Your access is limited. What was your thoughts on hunting? So let's get into the season here. Like, walk us through up to when you killed your deer.
So I have a hard time. I say it every year. I'm not going to hunt till the end of October. And I like to hunt. I like to sit in a tree. I want to go hunt. So it's hard to say that and then do it. I said it for 3 or 4 years now, and I said it again this year. I'm not going to go till I think the weather's right and I'm seeing the bucks on camera. That's when I'm going to go. And it didn't happen. Didn't happen again. So I picked a spot along my east line, and I should have. It was a rainy day. I just wanted to go sit. I get that kind of the first sit out of the way, then I'm good type of thing. So I got it all wrote down here, so I'll just kind of go through real quick. On the 5th of October, I went out on night, sat for 2 hours, got rained on, and seen 6 deer, but got busted. I couldn't move much and it was raining, so she didn't know it was necessarily a hunter or me, but it wasn't good. So then I just waited. So I didn't go out again till October 12th. And that was that first cold front day where it got really cold.
Big cold front. That was that was the day that I shot Jim Abbott.
Was that the 12th? So that was a Friday morning.
Yep, so mine was the 13th. It was Saturday morning that I shot Jim.
Yep, so I went to my spot good and early, that double maple, I call it, the new spot. And that's when I seen a block out in front of me. So the wind was perfect. Wind was coming out of the northwest, going right onto the neighbors. All my wind walking in went right onto the neighbors. So it was a perfect setup, but I got busted by that doe. And so I was really upset after that happened. But I came, and I was going to sit all day too, but I came in and kind of regrouped. I ended up taking a shower and went back out that night. And that's when I saw those 3 bucks, and I got it on video. So if you go to my website or my YouTube page, I think it's episode 49, where I have this. I see a buck coming. It's a 2.5-year-old thin racked 8-point, and I'm shooting it. As soon as I see it, I said I'm shooting. But I got these guys on trail cameras too. So a lot of bucks have been showing their face leading up to this point. More than normal, more than any leading up to any year. So I'm like, so that was good. Well, little did I know these 2 other bucks were coming up right behind me, right off the neighbors, wind going right at him, basically. That deer turned, he was about 75 yards out, turned and walked right underneath me. And then one of the bucks snort wheezed, puffed all up, but I couldn't see it. Ended up being a little wider 8-point. Got pulled back on it, and he ran off. I don't know if I spooked it. I probably did. Stopped about 20 yards, and there was a tree, and I just didn't want to take it. Not that I'm not confident, but I had to go through the guts to take it, and it just wasn't worth it. I've learned my lesson. I mean, I still might wound deer, but I mean, as bad as I wanted to shoot that deer, and I wanted to shoot the deer bad, very bad, and I didn't take it. But all that was on video. So I went out on the 14th, it looks like, at night, and seen a bunch of scrape activity, but I didn't see any deer. And then I went out on the 19th. It was really windy that day, and I'm sitting in the same tree the whole time, and that was that Thursday night. It was right before another cold front was coming through. But one of the reasons I wanted to grab some trail camera stuff, so I wanted to go back there. There was scrapes everywhere, and I checked my trail cameras, 3 trail cameras, and I had the buck I shot on all 3 cameras.
In daylight, or was it after dark?
Daylight. 9 o'clock in the morning. He was everywhere around my property.
Was it all day, or was it just morning movement?
There was a noon shot, him chasing a doe, that southeast corner I told you about, coming off there, that video camera, went through by there at noon. So they were hot and heavy. He was chasing the doe. And because I was going to go out Saturday, so I had to change my plans. I needed to go that Friday morning. But that was the 19th, I'm sorry. I went out the 20th, which was another cold front, and I did see deer. So it was the 26th, another 6 days later. that I went out. So I had 6 hunts before, and I thought at this time, I'm like, I'm blowing this property up. But I wasn't getting caught, was hardly seeing any deer. So on that 20th, I seen a lot of deer.
Were you hunting the same stand every time you were going out?
Yep, same stand. It's good for a north out of the north wind, especially a west northwest wind. But I did go in it with a west southwest wind once, and I probably shouldn't have. I took a chance there, but wanted to see how good my scent control is working, I guess. But I didn't see any deer anyway. So, so then on the so leading up to the 26th, I went the 20th, which was a Saturday morning, and there's a 45-degree day, and I seen 8 deer, 2 unknowns, a lot of movement. And at that time there's still lots of brush and stuff, lots of leaves and stuff.
Yeah.
I did see a buck, but I didn't know what it was. And so then so that was a Saturday. Monday went by. Tuesday I checked the trail cameras, and that's when I seen that buck on the trail cameras activity. So I needed to change plans to go out earlier because that cold front came in a little earlier. So it went from 45 degrees, and then on that Friday morning it was 37 degrees. Obviously not a day back, but it was 6 days later. And so I'm sitting there again. I waited 2.5 hours. Oh, but I should probably say this. Walking into the stand, I kicked up the deer 15 yards from me in my hinge cut. Put the light on it. I had a flashlight. I almost turned around and went back to bed. I was not even halfway to the stand, just behind the house. And I'm like, nope, going back to bed. And then I'm like, I can't go back to bed. I usually take the kids to school, so I got my wife to take them that morning because she has to work afterwards. So it's kind of it's a hard deal. And how much she'd be really sick if I didn't go out hunting. So all that work. So I went out and sat. So 2 hours later, I had a doe and a fawn come underneath me, working their way from the west. And it's that line I was telling you about, that transition between property lines. They were on my property, but one of these days maybe I can show you this winter or whatever, but it's again that just kind of from 100-foot trees to 40, 50-foot trees, and then you go into my property a little bit more, then there's the 20, 30-foot trees. And then there's everything in between. They were eating acorns, though. White oaks were hot this year, and they were coming underneath me and nibbling on some oaks. But they did a loop. So they come by me to eat some oaks, and then they went straight north towards my house where that other stand was, but they would have been able to smell me where that other stand was, and they couldn't smell me this time.
Mm-hmm.
And then about 15 minutes later, TJ Hooker was going right on their trail. Not hot and heavy, but he was on their trail. Did the same exact thing. But he was making scrapes and grunting and rubbing trees the whole time. And he come right underneath me. And luckily, it took about 10 minutes for him to kind of come into the opening, because if it would have happened in 5 seconds, I probably wouldn't have. I almost messed up the shot as it is, but I got all that on video too. That's episode 50. And it was so sweet. I hate to jinx myself and say textbook, but, there was definitely a lot of luck on the side, especially with the shot, because he was angling hard away from me and I had to stop him. I had to yell, or I can't remember what I said, hey or something. He stopped. I was already pulled back. My mask had messed up, so it was screwing with me, trying to get it out of the way. I shot low, but he dropped the string about 8 inches. And if he didn't done that, I would have missed him. So putting him on alert actually helped me.
Yep.
And he only went 50 yards. And then I got a hold of you a little bit later. I sent you that picture.
Yep.
And then since then, I've only been out. I was out November 10th. I went out in the morning, seen a couple deer, and that was it. We don't see any deer around here come gun season.
Yep. And that's kind of a testament to a lot of gun pressure as well. A lot of people get into these little woodlots and these sections, and they kick the deer right out of there, basically. And I feel like as it gets colder, deer, where I live, and I don't live far from you, I don't hunt where I live, but I only live a couple miles from you, around me, there's not a lot of cover around me. So the deer, what I could see the last 4 years just living here, they like to go where the cover is. And the closest cover to me, like really good cover, is probably 3 miles. 3 miles to my east. And it's like a big river bottom. And from people that I've talked to and people, and even just seeing deer, driving around and everything, they're in that river bottom, and it's big. Like, it's a big river bottom. And, I don't think a lot of people hunt around me right here once it comes to muzzleloader season in December and everything. So I think they feel safe around those areas.
It's like a ditch. My neighbors, my neighbors, I really want that 20 acres because he's got a big 2-acre food plot he put in. And so I knew all this stuff going in this season as well. So that helped out me. I think him putting in that food. Actually, I put it in the year before for him, but I must have been too expensive for him this year. But anyway, he did it himself, and they put in some food, and then they got that river bottom or that creek, that what is it, a drainage ditch or something?
Yeah.
But I've walked it before because I was over there, and he's nice. They let me. Hey, you need to walk on the property, wounded deer anytime, blah blah blah. Basically everything behind it. And so I've walked it before, and there's so much deer activity through there.
Yeah, so to break down the deer, you named him TJ Hooker, break down, what he looked like and, how old he was and stuff like that. And so everybody can paint a picture for everybody.
Yeah, so as soon as one of the first pictures that was on video, I seen him, and he had this left G2 that hooked around. And for some reason, TJ Hooker was in my mind because on the Dish Network, they show all those old shows once in a while. I don't watch TJ Hooker, but it was, from the 70s or something, late 70s, 80s, I think maybe growing up I did. But it's the first thing that just kind of popped into my mind because I'm not good at naming stuff. And I usually never got into it much. Never had the opportunity. How do you name yearling buck? And it is a lot easier than saying, hey, that 8-point that's got the G2 on the left and the the brow tines are, 4 inches. So it is a lot easier to name them. So that was cool. And I think I had some history with them. I looked up some old trail camera stuff, and I think I got him last year as a 2-year-old, I think. And I don't have his stats sitting in front of me, but I quick scored him antler score wise, and I don't go off antler score, by the way. I do use it as data to keep track of, but I'm not a big score guy. I go off the age of animals, doe or buck. It doesn't really matter. But it was like 108 or 110, something like that. I lower jawbone aged him at 3, but I did send in the 2 front incisors to ageyourdeer.com, and they're actually in Michigan here. I called him, talked to him. He's a great guy. Talked to him for a while. Those $25. They don't get the results back until like April because he sends them all in at once.
Yeah.
And that's the Cementum annuli technique. So hopefully it comes back and I'm right. We'll see. But I did that for this one just because I need to know. It's more than 99% accurate when you do that. Me, lower jawbone aging, I'm probably 50-50. I could be right. I could be total. It could be 2-year-old. I don't know.
Right.
But but he did weigh. He was 190 live weight. I think 160 dressed. And that's about it. Yeah. And then, and he was really working my property. Again, I think I go back to, I should look in my records. That kind of jogged my memory a little bit, but I wonder if I killed a doe 4 years ago or 4 years ago that had a button buck with her. I have no idea.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting.
Because really, that's his fourth hunting season. It's a 3.5-year-old deer, if it is a 3.5-year-old. Because his first year's a button buck, no antlers. So he learning the world, 6 months old stuff, and they can live. They're weaned off their mother within 2 months. So, but I like killing does later in the season. I know a lot of people don't, but I do because I'm in such close quarters with them. Because I like to pull their fetuses to see how many fetus they have and age the fetus to see when they were bred.
Yep.
So I can tell, like, I think this year the breeding season was done before gun season. Majority of it, anyway. I had a little scraping activity in the beginning of November, but
yeah, and I don't know with you, Justin or Case, I don't know what you guys had, but I'll tell you what, man, is you bring up scrapes. This year, it didn't matter what property I walked on, middle of October, I saw more scrape activity the middle of October than I have ever seen in my life. It was unbelievable.
I concur with that too. All the properties I walked to.
Justin, did you have that at all?
I don't know. It's hard for me to give an educated opinion on that, just because I was hunting public land and I hunted 4 different tracks, and it was just, I just, based on the observations I saw when I had time to hunt.
Yeah.
It's one of those things you look for as a hunter to figure out where to start hunting.
Right.
When it's not your property, but I don't know. I found myself making a lot of mock scrapes this year compared to the past, but I don't know. I guess, yeah, on public land I did see quite a few scrapes.
And I think, like our area too. Well, this year we had a lot of white oaks, so the deer, and they ate them up too. But so they were kind of sporadic a little bit. But I think too, the way Michigan has been changing a little bit with, I could be totally wrong here, but getting a little older age class, kind of everybody's voluntarily letting go yearling bucks, and that may have helped too. Maybe a little bit more of an intense rut. I don't know.
Yeah. Yep.
But I know that in Missouri, Dr. Grant Woods also said rut was early there too, because a deer calendar is different than our calendar.
Yeah, and I was just talking to somebody today, a buddy of mine today, and I was going back in my journal, and I hunted the main farm, like I think it was 11 times this year, 11 sits. So not 11 days, but 11 sits. And my buck to doe ratio, and I even went off of sighting. So like if I drove by and I saw, let's say I saw 5 does or I saw 5 bucks or what it was, I write all that down in my journal just because I drive by it a lot. So any deer sightings, whether I was hunting or not hunting, on that farm this year, my buck to doe ratio this year was 1-to-1. And I was really baffled by that. That was something that I really wanted to hone in on, this year. And I started doing it last year a little bit, and how you bring up like a more intense rut. Like, you drive 15 minutes to the west of me, and Kasey used to hunt that property with me as well. Our buck to doe ratio is way out of whack. I mean, it could be 30-to-1, but 15 minutes to the east where the main farm is, literally this year I ended up seeing, I'd have to go back and look, but it was like 17 bucks to 17 does. 17 different bucks, to 17. I don't know if they were different does or not. I can't really tell that. But my sightings, that's what it was. So,
and you're not counting the fawns, right? Just the adult does.
Adults, yes.
Yes, yeah. I mean, plus it's a shorter. A lot of people are down on the APR, and I'm not a big APR fan, but I support them. The antler point restrictions, because it is proven to protect 50% of the yearling cohort. The reason is if you can get a more intense, shorter rut, you have a shorter fawning period.
And it's more precise. Like,
well, it's less stress on the animals.
yeah,
All
it's
of them.
tighter. Yes.
It's less stress on the animals. And everyone just thinks, APRO trophy hunting, and I could give a care less about the trophies. Again, antler size and trophies, I want to hunt to have fun. It's exciting to kill animals, and especially, who doesn't like antlers? What hunter is not out hunting antlers?
Right.
What are you doing it for? Meat? Come on. The grocery store is cheaper. But it just puts less stress on the animals, and then it puts less stress on the fawns when they're born, because they're all born within the first, 1 week or 2 weeks of each other. And all this information, again, is online. You can look at research done at the Turtle Lake Hunt Club, and that's up in northern Michigan, way northern Michigan. And they have huge success with breeding, and their average buck kills 4.5 years old. They kill a lot of does and could kill more. And it's just out there. It's healthy deer herd. And a healthier herd is going to have less diseases, be less sick, less predators, all that.
And that's the thing too with the tighter rut, and that's why that's why I'm an advocate of killing does, is you have a tighter rut, you have a tighter fawn drop, and that also entails, you have a less predation, I would think, like in the research I've done, less predation. And I don't know, I want to be able to go out to the woods also and have, like I said, have a tighter rut where, I mean, a more, I don't know what word it would be, like an impactful rut where you could go out and actually call to deer and have them come to you. You know what I mean? Like right now, in Michigan, in my opinion, you don't even take the antlers in the tree with you and rattle a deer in. I did have luck this year of grunting and a bleat call once I saw that deer, but I don't blind call. I
was doing a little blind calling that morning. I shot mine. Whether it worked or not, I have no idea.
Right.
I don't think it did. I don't really don't think it did. That's why I didn't even mention it. But I was doing some light grunting.
Yep.
But after I shot that buck, though, I did have 2 yearlings come right by me, too. It looked like those 2 yearlings were looking for my buck.
Yep. Justin, what's your take on the does, on the killing of does and everything and keeping them down?
In my opinion, it is a necessary thing to do, especially if it's on a property that you have control over. Like if it's not going to be as impactful on a 20 as it will be on a 220, but it's.
Yeah, I'm not hurting the doe population at all.
No,
really.
No, they're coming to you to bed. Like it's only one factor in their lifestyle, but I mean that's what you have.
You're right on, like you said. The more acreage you have, the more you can help with your doe numbers and doe buck ratio, stuff like that.
It's still something that's necessary. Like you have to do it. I don't think you can expect to see any improvements in your ratios without killing any does. I mean, no matter what, they're born 1-to-1, but at the same time, it doesn't mean they're killed at 1-to-1, either by hunters or predators.
Yeah, and my rule of thumb, what I tell my clients too, is shoot a couple does off your property. Don't go, unless you're seeing a whole bunch, you can take a few more, but at least take 1 or 2, depending on how many acres they have and how many hunters they have and so on. But if they kill a buck, I want them to kill 2 more.
Yeah, for sure. It's, it comes down to like you just said about the stress of the animals as a whole, like the whole herd. Again, not necessarily on just your property, but in the bigger picture. The closer those numbers are, that ratio, the closer it is to 1-to-1, in theory, you actually increase the breeding pressure, I guess, right? Because there's more competition for the same number of does by the same number of bucks, as opposed to having more options. But
And usually bucks can only sire 3 to 5 does a year, just because of, and that's ideal anyway, because they'd be wore out. If not, they're wore out anyway. Because they're only in estrus, 24 to 48 hours tops. So they're with that doe a lot. So yeah, it puts less stress on them. And if you can have 3.5-year-old bucks or older in your deer herd, or even 2.5, puts less stress on the yearlings too.
yeah, and the thing is, like, you can take this as far down the line as you could possibly think, but there's so many other ways that it affects, the rut, because if you have too many does, and say you've got 90 does and 30 bucks, so that's 2 to 1. If every 30 of those bucks is with one doe for the 48 hours, let's say, that she's in estrus, that leaves 2/3 of the rest of the doe population that's unattended, potentially in the same time frame. And if they're not bred, they're going to cycle again 28 days later, which is where you see that quote unquote second rut, or that late rut that usually comes like in the beginning of December.
So they're going to cycle till they get bred, basically. Yep.
Yeah, but then you're putting that pressure back on them again. You're seeing the bucks get worked up again after they've already been malnourished and their fat reserves are low and they've been shot at and driven through every piece of property in the county. It's like conception rates are so much lower because there's more stress, and it's just it's harder conditions. And then you see those fawns born later in the spring, as opposed to those nice, healthy early fawns like we talked about earlier. And I mean, it's just, there's a domino effect to everything when it comes to the rut and when and why. And I mean, again, what started this conversation was, what's the opinion on killing does? Like, do you need to do it or don't you? Well, it just depends on how many you have to work with and, the overall bigger picture you're trying to impact.
Well, and that's also like me on the 1 acre, the main farm there, the 1 acre farm. I don't see a lot of does. Like, I don't have a lot of does that are filtering through that property, and I honestly think the does that I am seeing are the same does. I feel like there's probably 8 to 12 does that really call that area home. And like I said, I just looked at my journal the other day, and I'm at 1 to 1 right now. So, if I go out and shoot a doe or two, is it going to hurt me? No, I really don't think it's going to. But do I want to shoot a doe off there? I'm kind of on the fence about it. I'm like, I could go shoot one, but then again, it's like, I don't know.
Why would I? I only
Right.
have this many, and I want to bring as many bucks in as possible. Like, the more does you have, the higher the chances you're going to see the buck you want. Like,
exactly. And then Kasey knows this on my, basically what I call the family farm, but it's the LP camp. Kasey used to hunt that with us forever. And I mean, you can attest to that. Like, you go out in our hayfield on any given summer night, or even in the fall, you'd see 75 to 100 does in that field at one time. Like, I'm not just saying filtering through. Like, at one time, you can count that many does. There's a doe problem up there, So it's like, up there, yes, that's where the does need to be shot.
well, that's where the guys can go to hunt that say they don't hunt antler.
Exactly.
No, there's problems like that no matter where you go. I mean, like I told you, Aaron, I think second shotgun season here in Iowa, one of the farms that one of our owners has, he's already shot like almost, I think he's at like 47 or 48 does so far, just between
Holy
second
cow.
shotgun. Yeah, just between second shotgun and muzzleloader that just only opened up on Monday this week.
That's a lot of does.
I know. I mean, I went to Bill's a couple weeks ago, like I told you, and I shot 4 in one night. So
Yeah, if you can shoot that many in one night, you can. If you can do it. If you can't, you don't do it. Obviously.
and the thing is, it's like you said, it's just needed. I mean, it's just those bigger properties where it does actually have an effect.
Yeah, and like you said too, those fawns that are dropping, later, because what is it in the summer? Summer months. That's when like the coyotes are. That's when they're dropping their young, and that's when they get more kind of territorial in a way. That's kind of what I've read before, and I see more coyotes in the daylight in hayfields here in Michigan, out in the summer, and they're getting a little more territorial. So, the later and later those fawns get dropped, or earlier, the more predation comes in and could possibly take more of those fawns. I don't know if that's the right theory, but I guess that's kind of one of the theories I go by as well.
Yeah, there's actually right.
Yeah, it is. There's a study that was done a long time ago. It was kind of the basis for a predator-prey relationship models across the board, and it applies to everything from coyotes and deer fawns to fox and cottontails down to, I don't know, probably frogs and fruit flies. I don't know. But it's called the Lotka-Voltaire model, and it showed over time the relationship between the number of fox that this person was studying to the number of, I think it was either like long-eared hares or cottontails. It was some kind of rabbit. But it was just one of those things that showed the availability of food in the winter that kept the female foxes healthier to raise a bigger brood of pups, which ultimately led to an influx in mouths to feed, which equated to a lower number of rabbits. But then when the rabbits all became too scarce, the litters got smaller, fox numbers went down, rabbit numbers went back up, and it's just a constant cycle, and it's
ebbs and flows. They keep going up and down. Yeah.
Yep. So that was the Lotka-Voltaire model is what that's called.
I don't know. I'm for killing the does when applicable, or when it needs to be. Like you said, Justin. Like if you've got a farm where, like my LP camp farm, a lot of does out there. We need to take does. But on the main farm, it's not going to hurt me to not take a doe. I just don't think I need to take a doe over there right now.
No, I would agree with you. So there's no reason to. It's
right.
You're just decreasing your chances of that doe being the one that brings, the next Jim Abbott by you.
Right. Case, on your 20 acres, what do you think your ratio's at right now?
Oh, boy. Well, I know 4 yearling bucks made it through the gun season. It's I couldn't tell you. It's obviously there's more does than there's bucks. Some days I think that there's way too many deer in the area in general, but they are staying fed. And I know my one neighbor took a couple does, which they usually don't. And I need to take a couple does, but again, 2 houses down, there'll be 15 deer in the back of our yard. Now, half of them are doe fawns, or half-year-olds, whatever. But I don't know buck to doe, no idea. I haven't seen a shooter on camera since early November that I would shoot 2.5.
So, do you think you have you said you have more does than you do bucks? So, you want to take another doe or 2 at least? I mean, are you looking to take 2, 3, 4 does off your property a year?
No, at least 1 a year I'd like to take, and then I like to get, if my stepson wants to get one or if my wife wants to get one, give them opportunities to shoot something. And it wouldn't hurt us, I don't think. But I like to take at least 1, and then if I shoot a buck like I did this year, I want to take 2. I don't know if I'm going to make that, but I'm going to try.
Yep.
And my opportunities, like that doe, the notch one I mentioned earlier, doe and 2 fawns, I'm targeting specific ones. So I would like to get her because she lives here. She's around here all the time. I'd like to get her. But then I just seen a wounded one the other day, barely can walk on 3 legs, won't put any weight, little bit of weight on her right front shoulder, and it won't run away very far. So I don't think it's going to make it. I don't know if it got hit by a car or a gun, but I haven't got a great look at it. So I'd like to kind of maybe target that one too if I can. And we can use guns, but I don't really want to use a gun right now.
Yep.
But, I don't know how winter's going to be. So far, it's been pretty mild and wet. There's hardly any snow. It's not hard on them yet, but I heard it's supposed to get cold. I don't know.
Yep. Next couple weeks, I heard it was supposed to get down a little bit. But like you said, we got a skiff of snow right now, and it's the first snow I've seen in a while so far.
And for doe numbers, like the LP camp, you could run a doe survey or deer number survey pretty easily in the summer, especially with a couple hundred acres, and get maybe an idea of how many you should take.
Yep.
But me, I can't necessarily do that. I can maybe get with my neighbors and do it. A couple neighbors even. Half a section we could do it, but not me alone.
Those deer surveys are pretty cool too. I mean, and how I've watched Dr. Grant Woods do his, and they're pretty cool. How you formulate a plan and how to do them, and you can really. I mean, how precise are they really? Can you really get them down to within 5-10% of your herd?
He can, because he's got so many acres and so much time to do that. You need. Ideally, you should do a square mile, 640 acres. You could possibly do that. The lower the acreage, the way off you're probably going to be. Like I could probably guess and say 3-1 right now after gun season. Buck to doe, doe to buck, whatever, 3 does. But I could be wrong. That's. From my observations, that's probably what I would say, but my observations are not scientific. But I can't get too scientific. I just can't. I'd like to, but can't.
Yep.
So I got to use the old common sense.
Which there could be a lot, or there could be very little common sense, right?
There's a theory behind it, that's for sure.
Well, I mean, guys, it's been great. Is there any final thoughts either one of you guys want to throw out there, or any questions?
I don't have any questions. I'm kind of going back to some of the stuff you and I have talked about on previous podcasts, about, getting food sources close to bedding and, increasing the quality of the habitat that you've got. And like in Kasey's sake, it's bedding. He's hunting deer that are coming back to him. So it's eliminated his possibilities of hunting afternoons or, significantly decreased the success rate for hunting afternoons. But it sounds like at least you're on the right page. Your neighbors, with the exception of the one person who may or may not be doing things legally. It sounds like you've got the support of your neighbors. At least a couple of you have the right, the same mindset, I guess you could say, and you're working with who you can, and that's just as big a factor as getting your neighbors and other people involved, and just working with someone who has the same goals.
Yeah,
Especially
it's tough because
your
like
case.
those guys that have 160 now, they had their best year of hunting ever last year, and they took, I think all 6 guys got a buck, which. That's great, but in a science world, all of them shouldn't have got a buck. You know what I mean? Or not in the same age class, because they shot like 5 yearlings and 1 2.5-year-old. So if they make a decision, ideally, to be able to have success year in and year out, they should have said, okay, we can take 2 yearlings, and then that's it. That's how they should have did their camp if that's what they're going to do.
Yeah, they've got enough property to be able to limit that and actually see a result in a couple of years.
Because this year they didn't get one. Nobody got one. I don't know if they couldn't bait, but they do have food plots and stuff, but nobody got a buck. And they don't shoot those. So I'm like, well, if they would have, left a couple for seed, you never know. Because I have the same problem here on my property. Like, I don't know if I should take another quality buck this year, which I don't know if I have the opportunity, but should I take it?
Yeah, I don't know. That's tough.
Yeah, that's tough to say.
I would let my wife take it. I'd let my wife take it, but am I going to take it?
Right. That's tough to say. I mean, we're down to the last, 10 days of season too. You know what I mean? And it's like, what do you do? And I'm kind of in that boat too. Right. And it's, my neighbors are a little different than yours though as well. I mean, and I haven't killed a buck this year. Not to say I have to kill a buck every year, but if I did have one of my shooters that I did have, that I had all year and he just decided to show up, it might be one of those things that's like, boy, I know he's going to make it the next 10 days, where I think he is. I mean, Jim did get hit by a car. So it's like, it's one of those things that you fight with. What do you do?
Well, and in my case, since I did shoot one, it's going to have to be bigger.
Right.
I definitely am not going to take something smaller. Definitely. So mine will have to be bigger. And I haven't seen anything bigger on camera since early October. And I don't know where he went. So that's not likely. And years previous, my history is not likely neither.
Yep.
Not unless I get a hot doe or something. But I do have those 4 yearlings running around pretty regularly. So I think one's an offspring. But anyway, that's about it. That's long enough. Obviously we talked forever, but
no, it was good. I appreciate you coming on, Case, and doing this again. And I think it's probably time we wrap this one up. So,
all right.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me on. Obviously, it's tons of fun. This is my living, and managing. It's just so much fun, and I'm blessed to be able to do it, and appreciate the time.
Yeah. And, if anybody wants to see what Kasey's doing and, even call on his services a little bit too, he does do the whitetail management and consulting and everything. And Case, can you direct them where to find all that information?
Well, I'd like to direct everybody to the website. So it's www.completedeer.tv or .com. That's where a lot of the information is. You can learn about the services, search around, watch a bunch of videos. I got over 50 of them on the website. Get to know me, see some of what the clients have shot this year and other years, and then a free phone call. Give me a call. I think the number's on there. I'm not sure. Usually email first, and it's right through there, or wildlifehabitat.com, or no, wildlifehabitat@hotmail.com. And I'm on Facebook, Complete Deer Management on Facebook. A lot of people get a hold of me that way. That's it. And phone calls free first, and then we talk. And usually what I like to do, if you get my services or want to go with me and have me involved, I like to stay involved for many, many years, because we will not do this in 1 year. We will not change anything in 1 year.
I'm going to put all your information in the show notes and everything, links and everything, so everybody can go on the show notes on iTunes, and they can click on those, and in the Podbean app as well. If you're listening through the Podbean app, go on the show notes there, and you'll be able to find Kasey through social channels, website, and wherever to get any information that you need. So.
Subscribe to YouTube too.
There you go.
Stuff away.
Subscribe to the YouTube. He's doing a lot of giveaways. You're doing one right now, aren't you?
I just gave a knife away. I am. I do have an ongoing. I got a Browning trail camera sitting here, but I'm a long way off of my subscribers. So I wanted to give it away. I just kind of committed to getting 1,000 subscribers. I got 700 to go. So, or no, 650. I don't know. Anyway, long way in this world when you don't put no money behind it. But I got another couple of small things to give away. I'm gonna try. It's fun. It sucks because I don't know. I want everybody to win, so it's hard picking one winner. But I think I found a system.
Well, there you go. If you want some cool content and you know wildlife habitat and everything, and for deer management, go to Complete Deer TV, and he's got a YouTube channel, and subscribe to that and try to win a trail cam too. So, well, cool. Let's wrap this up, Case. I appreciate you coming on again, and we'll have to do it again for sure.
All right, thanks.
And there you have it, another good podcast from Kasey Thren. I really appreciate him coming on and taking the time. It's late at night, right before Christmas here, and him and I have been trying to get this podcast out, and we just haven't been able to for one thing or another, but finally got it in, and hopefully there's a lot of information here that people can take from a small property management aspect, and we're going to elaborate this a little more on a coffee call here coming up in the near future, but I really wanted to get him on there because his story is pretty cool. He's had this property for the last 5 years, and it's been 5 years in the making, and finally he's killed a good deer on there. So, and if you guys could please go on to iTunes and leave a 5-star rating and a review, it'd be greatly appreciated. And don't forget, also we're running a giveaway right now with America's Best Bowstrings. Go on to either the Fall Podcast Instagram and find the post there and enter that way, or go on to the America's Best Bowstrings Instagram and follow that post. So you can go to either one. What you have to do is you have to follow both Instagram pages, the Fall Podcast and ABB Instagram, and then you have to comment on the post that we made there. You have to comment by tagging 3 different friends in there, and then you get automatically entered for the drawing. So we're going to announce a winner at random on the podcast here in the next couple weeks. So make sure you do that to get entered to win, a brand new custom platinum bowstring from America's Best Bowstrings. And 'tis the season. Merry Christmas right here and Happy New Year. Hopefully everybody has a good holiday, and thanks for listening.